The rain had not stopped for 3 days. It drummed on the glass walls of the towering office building where power, ambition, and pride walked in polished shoes. Inside that glass fortress, Elena Parker, the youngest female CEO in her company's history, moved with the quiet command of someone who had clawed her way to the top. Every morning, she arrived before sunrise, heels echoing through the marble lobby. And every morning, without fail, she passed the same man mopping the floor, a man with tired eyes, worn shoes, and a name tag that read Mark. She never noticed the warmth of his nod or the faint smile he offered her. To her, he was invisible, just another face in the background of her empire. But that morning was different. That morning, something shifted. Before we dive deeper into this story of hidden strength, second chances, and unexpected grace, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe if you believe in kindness that transcends titles and second chances that reveal the best in people. Your support helps us share more stories that touch hearts around the world. The day had started like any other. Elena had dropped off her 9-year-old daughter, Lily, at the company's daycare and tutoring center before heading upstairs for back-to-back meetings. Her mind was consumed with deadlines, investors, and a looming merger that could define her career. Between phone calls and presentations, she barely noticed the little things: the smell of fresh coffee, the quiet laughter of the staff, the janitor who seemed to always appear just as a hallway needed cleaning. Mark had worked there for almost a year. He arrived before dawn, left after everyone else, and never complained. The staff liked him. He was kind, humble, and always willing to help. But no one really knew him. He was just the janitor. No one asked where he came from or what his story was. That afternoon, after a long and grueling meeting, Elena's assistant reminded her that Lily's math tutor had canceled again. It was the third one that month. Lily struggled with math, and Elena, despite all her resources, couldn't seem to find anyone who could help. "It's fine," she sighed, rubbing her temples. "I'll take her out for ice cream later. She deserves that much." When the meeting ended, Elena decided to stop by the tutoring room to pick Lily up early. But as she approached the door, she heard laughter, a sound she hadn't heard from her daughter in weeks. Curious, she peeked through the small glass window on the door. What she saw made her freeze in place. Inside, sitting cross-legged beside Lily at a small whiteboard, was Mark, the janitor. His gray uniform sleeves were rolled up, his eyes kind and bright as he drew simple, clever illustrations of pizza slices and chocolate bars to explain fractions. Lily was smiling, completely absorbed, her face glowing with excitement. "Thank you, Mr. Mark. I finally get fractions," she said, clapping her hands in delight. Elena's breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she didn't move. She just watched her daughter laugh freely. Watched this quiet man, the one she'd never given a second thought to, bring light and understanding to her child's world in a way no expensive tutor ever had. When Mark finally noticed her standing at the door, he stood abruptly, wiping his hands on his uniform. His expression was a mix of surprise and embarrassment. I'm sorry, ma'am," he said softly. "Lily was having trouble with her homework. I used to tutor math a long time ago, so I thought I'd help while I cleaned up." Elena didn't know what to say. She just nodded stiffly, murmured a polite, "Thank you," and led Lily away. But her mind was spinning. Used to tutor math? What did that mean? Why would someone with that kind of skill be working as a janitor? That night, Elena couldn't sleep. The image of Mark patiently guiding her daughter haunted her thoughts. Curiosity gave way to guilt. She had built her success on recognizing potential, yet she had walked past it every day without seeing it. The next morning, she decided to find out more about him. When she asked HR for his file, she was stunned. Mark Bennett, age 42, former high school math teacher, employed for 10 years until his wife, a nurse, passed away from cancer. After that, he left teaching to care for his young son, and when medical bills consumed his savings, he took whatever job he could find. Eventually, he ended up working as a janitor to keep a roof over their heads. Elena sat back in silence, feeling a lump rise in her throat. The story broke something open inside her, a mixture of sorrow, admiration, and shame. Over the next few weeks, she noticed him more. How he smiled at the security guards, how he offered to fix a flickering light even when it wasn't his duty, how his eyes lit up when Lily waved at him. Slowly, she began to speak with him, not as a CEO to an employee, but as a person to another person. She learned that his son, Jacob, was in high school and wanted to be an engineer but couldn't afford tutoring. She learned that Mark spent his lunch breaks reading old math textbooks, just to stay sharp in case he ever got the chance to teach again. One afternoon, Elena walked into the break room to find a group of employees whispering. They were snickering, pointing toward the hallway where Mark was scrubbing a coffee stain on the carpet. "Imagine," one of them said, "a janitor trying to play teacher. What's next? Teaching calculus with a mop." The laughter stung her ears. Before she could stop herself, she stepped forward and said firmly, "That man teaches better than most people in this building manage to lead." The room fell silent. It was in that moment she realized something important. Power wasn't about titles. It was about respect. The next week, Elena invited Mark to her office. He walked in nervously, clutching his cap, his eyes downcast. "I hope I didn't cause any trouble with Lily," he said quietly. She smiled for the first time in weeks. "Quite the opposite," she replied. "You reminded me what true leadership looks like." Then she slid a folder across her desk. Inside was a proposal, a company-sponsored educational program for employees' children, led by Mark himself. "I want you to head this," she said softly. "Not as a janitor, but as a teacher again, if you're willing." For a long moment, Mark didn't speak. His hands trembled as he looked at the papers. "Are you sure?" he whispered, his voice breaking. "I haven't been a teacher in years." Elena's eyes glistened. "You never stopped being one," she said. The months that followed changed everything. Mark's program became a success, helping dozens of children from the company's families improve their grades. He built a small classroom near the daycare, filled with laughter, colorful posters, and the warmth of purpose. Lily's confidence soared. So did Mark's. That he still cleaned sometimes, not because he had to, but because he said it kept him grounded. And every morning, Elena no longer walked past him. She walked beside him, greeting him with a smile that carried gratitude and respect. One day, during the company's annual gathering, Elena shared the story publicly. She spoke of humility, hidden strength, and the quiet dignity of those who refuse to give up. When she finished, she turned toward Mark in the front row and said, "This man reminded me that the greatest leaders often start by lifting others. That titles mean nothing without kindness." The audience rose to their feet, applauding as Mark stood there, tears shining in his eyes. Later that night, Mark's son, Jacob, came up to Elena and whispered, "Thank you for seeing my dad." And she realized, sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is not money or opportunity, but simple recognition of their worth. Years passed, and the story of the janitor who became a teacher again spread far beyond those office walls. It became a reminder that everyone carries unseen battles and untold potential. All it takes is one person willing to see it. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Stories like this remind us that no act of kindness is ever wasted, and no person is ever just anything.